Huge W for American car fans. It's good that us Americans can be happy about something before the majority of us inevitably get conscripted into World War III. Regardless, the latest C8 Corvette ZR1 has been taking W's left and right against the latest supercars throughout this entire month. The Corvette is now a supercar, yup. Also, don't try it with the whole exclusivity BS. If Lamborghini Huracans can reach 20,000 production numbers and Porsche 911s have over 1.2 million, yes, not 10,000, not 100,000, millions, you heard that right. There are almost as many grandmas driving Crown Victorias as there are Porsche 911s, not the Cayman, the 911. These are official statistics from Porsche themselves when they count all the VINs produced. I really have to emphasize this one since I hear a lot of people call the Porsche 911 and its various trims a supercar, but then they turn a cold shoulder to the Corvette and all of its trims. I know in America we don't really see as many 911s, but in Europe it's basically their midlife crisis equivalent of the Corvette. It's everywhere. Exotic by definition just means hailing from a foreign land, which is basically a matter of perspective. The 911 is exotic in the US and the Corvette is exotic in Europe. Exotic never had anything to do with rarity or luxury, but call it what you want, ignore it or acknowledge it, but the reality is the Corvette pushes the supercar definition and now even the hypercar envelope of performance. Sure, beating a hypercar and being called a hypercar are two entirely different things, but companies, whether they want to say it aloud or not, have to acknowledge the Corvette's existence and now need to engineer something more competitive accordingly. All in all, competition is always good. I am sick and tired of the Corvette being the Yamcha of the car community for decades now. The crazy part is I think this is only an American citizen issue. The Euro snobs in America are 10 times more annoying than actual Europeans who drive European cars in Europe. Don't get me started on the sad boy JDM fanboys here. Seriously, I love all of you viewers from abroad, but for my domestic audience, I don't get why America has this huge subculture that's obsessed with hating itself. Anyways, let's talk about what we do know, what we don't know, and what we maybe know. So what do we know? Well, the current Corvette C8 ZR1 makes a whopping 1,064 horsepower. That's something you would hear from hypercars just 10 or so years ago. And this is coming from a 5.5 liter twin turbocharged LT7 dual overhead cam flat plane crank V8 engine. There are engines that had twice the cylinder count that made about the same horsepower over a decade ago. It is insane how far we've come. Like people keep saying piston engines have reached peak efficiency. People have been saying that for the past like 3 decades now, like from the 90s onwards. Everyone wanted to go super environmental friendly, blah, 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 blah. But piston engines keep just pushing the barrier more and more and more. And I'm so proud because I don't want to hear a single EUDM fanboy be all like, oh yeah, well, liter to liter, Corvette engines are still super efficient. What is your excuse now, huh? The Corvette now makes a whopping 193 horsepower per liter. Also, I hate this stupid comparison since it never takes into account forced induction. Just because turbos and superchargers don't add displacement in liters doesn't mean they aren't still affecting fuel economy, engine weight, complexity, and reliability. It's not my fault some lawmakers were dumb enough to make foolish laws hyper-emphasizing liter regulations over half a century ago, where adding 2 turbos to an engine and getting 19 miles per gallon is somehow seen as more environmentally friendly than a lighter, smaller, and more fuel-efficient 6.2 liter that gets 27 miles per gallon.
The impressive numbers come instead from the C8's fuel economy, and he averaged 29 miles per gallon for his whole trip.
I already made a whole short on this topic, you can check it out later, but displacement does not mean the physical size of the engine like people think. By that logic, a 2-liter diesel must be super small and tiny and love the environment, right? But there's some 2-liter diesels that literally weigh just way heavier than a 5-liter or even 7-liter V8 for that matter. So stop hyper-obsessing over displacement. It's just one number, doesn't tell the full story. First off, the Corvette engine was never big. There's a reason it's called a small block because displacement, by the way, is determined by the cylinder heads. You can actually bore out cylinder heads and not increase the weight of a vehicle because you haven't changed the engine block that it's attached to. This is why even in video games like Forza Horizon, which a lot of these fanboys fanboys like to quote. I don't know if you've ever noticed, but in video games like that, whenever you change the displacement of vehicles, it actually doesn't increase the weight of it. So yeah, there's also a reason why engine swapping Corvette engines like LS and LTs are so popular, because they're physically smaller than a lot of V8s that have smaller displacement numbers, like the 5-liter Coyote, for example. Also, gonna say it again, over 25 different supercar companies use Corvette engines. If they can be considered supercars, the Corvette can be considered a supercar. I'm probably sounding like a broken record here, constantly saying that displacement doesn't mean physical engine size, but I really am just trying to do my best to help people who are dropped on their Skolos babies understand this concept. Anyways, a 6.2 liter Corvette V8 making 500 horsepower, that was always healthy, because again, it was a small block. The naturally aspirated 5.5 liter V8 making 670 horsepower, that was even better. That's pretty dang good actually, but a lot of AMG and BMW fanboys were still comparing it liter to liter to their twin turbo V8 models. Again, forgetting that the Corvette has yet to even add forced induction into the equation, but since you guys want to make these comparisons, now we do a forced induction. This is now fair, right? Playing by your guys' game. So liter to liter, we are now blowing their numbers out of the water, especially when you consider the price tag on this Vet. It is super impressive. The C8 Corvette ZR1 will start at $178,000 and option out. It's going to cap off just below $200,000 at $199,195. For this level of performance for that price, I mean, come on, literally untouchable bang for buck.
The C8's 9.8 second run makes this easily the quickest accelerating two-wheel drive car we've ever tested here.
This goofy Yankee mobile is only 0.2 seconds slower than a Bugatti and Jesco are on the quarter mile, not the 0 to 60, the quarter mile. Okay, so I'm gonna dial back the excitement for a bit, because the massive elephant in the room is this car is obviously gonna be marked up to high hell. They may actually end up selling for 225, even 250 grand, and some of the higher option models may even go nearly 300 grand in the first few months to first year of this car being on the market. If people were buying freaking Civics for 71 grand during quarantine, anything's possible with markup these days. I literally spent the past few months discussing how effed the car market is, even many years after the pandemic ended. Also, for those who are coping with, well, people who buy marked up cars are people who can actually afford it, so it doesn't matter to them. Nah, I've got friends who work in banking, insurance, and credit unions, and the amount of 600 credit score MFs taking 70 to 100 grand loans to be the first person to own a Type R Super or Hellcat in their city or whatever, you know, it would surprise you. A nice car doesn't mean people are automatically rich, and if someone still thinks it's a sole marker of wealth, then they're probably the same type of guy to fall for the $1,000 alpha male training courses. That's why you should subscribe to me instead, because for the low price of free, you can learn something new about the world every single week. Let's not kid ourselves here. A truly rich and successful person was not lining up in 2021 biting their nails at the opportunity of buying a Civic for $71,000. They just weren't. They're either buying a used 15-year-old Cadillac like Warren Buffett does, or the latest and greatest limited edition Ferrari, Lamborghini, Bugatti, you name it. So this brings me back to my point that people who purchase absurd markup prices are stupid. They're clout chasers who for some reason still think it's the 2017 era of YouTube, where Rice Gum and Jake Paul and the whole supercar flexing meta is still gonna work in the big 2025. Y'all, I've said it once and I'm gonna say it again, we might need to bring back bullying. We got to stop normalizing car markup. These MFs are dented in the head and we need to laugh at them. Otherwise, the car market will legit never heal. Anyone who buys cars at stupid markup, you're part of the problem. Okay, I'm gonna back off the gas just a bit here, because in all seriousness, once the C8 ZR1 hits the used market, it might just be one of the best bargain supercars money could buy. This was already true for every other ZR1, to be fair, like the C7 ZR1 is still a great deal, and even the C6 ZR1 holds up fantastically. I don't really see myself buying another Corvette anytime soon, or really ever again, but y'all new age Corvette fans will be eating good when the C9 comes out, and the C8 Z06 and ZR1 might actually drop below 100 grand someday. I know some collector boomers don't think that will happen, but it happened to the C6, the C7, it's gonna happen to the C8 too. The Corvette C8 is literally one of the highest production Corvettes from a year-to-year standpoint, so higher supply means it'll be one of the cheaper Corvettes in the future. I can't wait until people clap out the C8, just like what Gen Z does to the C5 today. That's of course assuming gas cars are still relevant enough to be around and become clapped out in the future. Honestly, no lie, I might actually crack a smile if I see a clapped out C8 on the road 20 years from now, because I wonder how many internal combustion engines will still be around by then. And that's kind of a sombering thought. Let's move on. Okay, so we're reaching the speculation part of the video. The C8 Z06 had a somewhat underwhelming Nürburgring time, and the C8 ZR1 has no official posted time yet. But some people are speculating that the ZR1X trim of it will achieve a 6:22, which completely smokes the Mercedes AMG 1, which is currently the fastest production car holding that record. I'll be honest though, I'm not even gonna glaze the Corvette that much. I'll believe it when I see it. Personally, I think the Corvette ZR1 getting anything that starts with 30 something is already leagues ahead of the competition relative to its price. Despite being your local boomer zoomer Corvette simpaholic, I'll gladly sit with the crowd of doubt with this one. Again, I'll believe it when I see it. And the main reason is because the C8 Z06 was actually slower than the C7 ZR1 around the Nürburgring, so I don't see a ZR1 variant of the same C8 engine somehow shaving half a minute off just because it's using more aero and twin turboing the same engine. Like for reference, shaving half a minute off took several companies fighting each other for almost a decade just to finally get to where we were now. I still remember when it was a huge deal when the 7-minute barrier got broken. So the 6-minute 30 barrier being broken was also a huge deal. And I know, crazy, right? I've been nut chugging the vet for 7 years now, but I'm getting hit with that post-vet clarity. So again, not gonna believe this rumor until it has something more substantial to back it up. And to be fair, like I said, if it was a little bit slower, I think that's still a huge W. It doesn't need to be the new fastest car around the Nürburgring. It would be cool for America to be on top of the track as well as in a straight line, but we'll see. Speaking of straight line, the Corvette ZR1 accelerates from 0 to 60 in under 2 seconds and was able to hit an astonishing 233 miles per hour, which again, for its price, is insane. This makes it the fastest American production car, not counting the Hennessey Venom GT or F5, which only had 29 and 24 models respectively. The Guinness record requires at least 50 units made, and the Corvette is going to have no problem surpassing that production number. Keep in mind, this is just OEM. If people can mod C6 Corvettes to go past 250 miles an hour and C7s to go even faster, can you imagine what the C8 ZR1 modded is going to do top speed wise? So many supercars are stuck at this 217 mile an hour barrier for what feels like a decade now. I think literally it has been more than a decade. And even hypercars like the Pagani Huayra are kind of still sitting in the 20-30 mile an hour range. By the time you are talking about, speeds higher than that, we're looking at McLaren Speedtails, Bugatti Veyrons, Bugatti Chirons, Koenigsegg's. You're talking about some proper endgame hypercars. And the ZR1X variant is hyped up to have a top speed greater than the Bugatti Veyron Super Sport trim, meaning it intends to be something over 260 miles an hour. Oh, and I'm using freedom units this whole video because is that the third time I've used this meme in the past 3 months? Yes. Will I use it again in the future? You bet your sweet bippy I will. Now obviously a top of the line Koenigsegg or Bugatti Chiron Super Sport will still run laps around the ZR1X, but if you're having to buy cars that are more than 20 times expensive just to beat this Corvette, who can probably be tuned to the moon to still keep up, then maybe we're starting to finally grasp the gravity of this situation. This silly Yankee mobile that everyone seems to love to hate is within punching distance of the most elite peak of peak performing hypercars and is a fraction of their cost, and it's going to be produced in thousands of units and modded to the moon and back. There is something so liberating, you could almost say freedom inducing, when a vehicle can give these levels of performance to the everyday man. People can actually dream and aspire to own this car, since unlike $4 million, 170 grand is an attainable amount of wealth in most people's lifetime if they just actually put the work into it. To put this in perspective, you can have the ability to feel hypercar levels of performance for less than half the cost of the average house in the United States. Not trying to give anyone stupid ideas regarding finances, but hey, you know what they say, you can live in a car, but you can't drive a house. I can already hear Caleb Hammer screaming as his voice raises 2 entire octaves at the thought of someone buying a supercar over a house. But anyways, who cares if the ZR1X isn't as rare as a proper hypercar? You can't hear those people complaining from your rear view mirror anyways. This is the great equalizer. It is the ultimate humbler of egos, the brashest of brash, and it really is just that silly V8 that could. Do you think over half a century ago, when the Corvette engineers first designed the C1, they know it'd grow up to become the beast it is today? Maybe not the C1, but with the C2, for sure Zora did. Even if he's not around anymore, somewhere, somehow, I'm sure he's still smiling at the new Corvette ZR1X. Rest easy, big man. We did it. We finally did it. By birthright, it wasn't a supercar, but through sheer force of will, whether people want to call it one or not isn't what matters anymore. What matters is the fact that supercars fear it, they dread it, they mock it, yet they struggle to run from it, because the Corvette always comes back. Anyways, that's it for this video. Like it if you liked it, share it with your salty EUDM and JDM fanboy friends, and thanks for watching. Subscribe for more weekly situations updates, and I'll see y'all next time. Blade Angel out.